Vanakkam, Yenped Hunter,
Yenped Chris.
Yenped Meghna.
and today we are here to discuss HIV and AIDS. And we are from the International Alliance for the Prevention of AIDS. So before we get started, who can tell me what HIV stands for? Oh, also, pretend that you're a classroom in India, so I forgot about that. No, so, back. Who can tell me what HIV stands for? Yes?
Mr. Teacher, is it human immunodeficiency virus?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So, human immunodeficiency virus. So it's a virus that only infects humans. And it's an immune deficiency virus. So it affects the immune system and makes the immune system weak. So who can tell me what AIDS stands for?
Acquired immunodeficiency syndrome.
Correct, yeah, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. So it's acquired, meaning that nobody can be born with it. It's not something that someone's born with. Immunodeficiency, so it means that the immune system is weakened. And then syndrome. So HIV is a virus that can eventually lead to AIDS. It's important to know that HIV and AIDS are not the same thing. HIV is a virus that infects the immune system and can eventually lead to AIDS. So why is it even important to talk about this? Well, there are about 35 million people all around the world infected with HIV. And there are about 2.1 million people in India infected with HIV. So HIV is a huge problem all around the world. And there's a stigma associated with HIV, which makes it so, people are looked down upon if they're stigmatized, or they are rejected, which can be very awful for a person. So it's very important to talk about HIV so that we know how to prevent HIV transmission, and so we can also reduce and eliminate stigma that is associated with HIV. So, one of the most important things to know when we're talking about HIV is to get tested. Getting tested is the only way to know whether someone has HIV, or if someone is HIV positive, or is HIV negative. So what is the only way to know if someone is HIV positive or HIV negative?
Get tested.
What?
Get tested.
What?
Get tested.
Good. Get tested. Okay? So that is why we're here today. That is what we are going to be discussing. And so Meghna is going to be talking a little bit more about cells and the immune system.
Great. So like Hunter said, HIV is a virus that infects the human body and weakens the immune system. The immune system is made up of immune cells. Can anyone tell me what the immune system does? Yeah.
Fights off viruses.
Great. Yeah, and another way to say that is it makes you healthy, keeps you healthy, right? Fights off pathogens or viruses or bacteria that can get inside of your body and make you sick. So HIV targets specific immune cells. Will you write this on the board?
Yeah.
It targets CD4 positive cells, and these are just a specific type of immune cell that HIV can infect. And when it infects these immune cells, it kills most of them. So your body has billions and billions of CD4 cells in your immune system, and when HIV infects someone's body, it kills all of those cells and makes your immune system really weak. When someone's immune system is really weak, there's an opportunity for other infections to come into the body and make that person sick. So Hunter was talking about the AIDS stage, and someone who is considered to have AIDS has a really low CD4 count. This means that they have very little number of CD4 cells in their body, and they're unable to fight off other infections. Beautiful drawing by Hunter. And these infections are called opportunistic infections because they take the opportunity of a weakened immune system to make someone really sick. Opportunistic infections can be pneumonia, malaria, or tuberculosis. So I think that's all we need to talk about. Does anyone have any questions about kind of how HIV infects the immune system and what it does? Okay, great.
Okay, so we're gonna pause the teaching for a minute. You can keep that on. Yeah. So we're gonna pause the teaching for a minute, just so we can discuss what we went over as teachers. Okay, so what were some of the important points that you think that we covered?
Talking about stigma.
Stigma, yeah, stigmas are a huge one to talk about.
Differentiating HIV and AIDS.
Yeah, differentiating HIV and AIDS, because oftentimes if someone is infected with HIV, they might think, oh my gosh, I have AIDS, or I'm going to die, because AIDS and death have been associated.
You can't tell if someone has it, you only get tested.
Yeah, so getting tested is huge as well, and that ties really closely with stigma, because oftentimes people fear to go get tested because they don't want to be stigmatized, they don't want to be looked down upon for going and getting tested. If they're standing in line and like a friend sees them, then they might feel that they're being stigmatized or something. So getting tested is the only way to know whether you have HIV or don't.
What did HIV and AIDS stand for?
Yeah, so defining HIV and AIDS, we want to make sure that the students know what we're talking about right from the beginning. So defining HIV and AIDS, and it's important to talk about what HIV is. So human immunodeficiency virus. It's human, the H stands for human because it only infects humans. So that we'll discuss that more, but it's important to talk about that it only infects humans, so that it's not spread through animals or through food or whatever. Yeah.
One thing I was gonna say, and maybe it's just the way I heard Hunter say it. He was talking about defining, like when he defined HIV and AIDS. He got to AIDS and he said it's acquired, which means that you're not born with it. Just make sure that that's really, if you're gonna say it that way, that it's really clear that you're talking about AIDS, because someone can be born with HIV. So
Right, yeah.
acquired just means that HIV has infected someone's body, and then eventually their immune system is really weakened, right?
Right. Yeah. It's just not passed through like genetics.
Right, sure.
So yeah, that's distinctions.
Sure, yeah. Good. And so I would, like, the only thing I want to add for you guys is that the beginning part is kind of like whatever you want to make it. We want you guys to be able to target some really specific behavior change in people, right? And so like talking about these things like stigma and getting tested, what HIV AIDS are, help to 1, reduce stigma, and 2, help to reduce misconceptions about HIV. So like those are big things that you should hit,
Right.
obviously, and as you're reading through the curriculum, you'll see all of those things in there.
Yeah. So like the main goals of what we're trying to do is we're trying to convince or inspire people to not stigmatize or to stop stigmatizing, and then also so they don't feel stigma, and then to get tested, because that's like number 1. That's the first thing you gotta do. Really.
Yeah, that's the only way we're gonna win this battle, is
Yeah.
if we can get people to get tested. So.
One of the things too, Hunter said, is about 35 million people infected with HIV around the world. You kind of want to make sure to mention that, and that it's a problem everywhere in the world and not just in India, because you don't want to be like, oh, there's 2 million people in India with HIV and that's why we're here, because something's wrong with India and they have all these people with HIV. You want to have it, you don't want to make it specific about just one country,
Right.
especially like being foreigners. Make sure
Yeah,
you
we
mention that there's a lot of people around the world that are infected with HIV, and it's a problem everywhere in the world. It's not just one place.
Yeah. We don't want to look like we're coming into just a foreign country and like you guys have HIV everywhere and you need to stop. Yeah, because that's not how it is. HIV is a problem everywhere. So
Yeah.
it needs to be clear.